You know, one of the most curious things about being human is that we seem to be the only creatures who believe in something called the future. The birds do not keep calendars. The cats do not schedule appointments. The trees do not say, I really must grow another inch by Thursday. And yet we, strange little ripples in the universe, have built our entire lives around an idea that time is something we are in, that we are traveling through it, like passengers on an invisible train, hurtling from birth to death, station to station. But have you ever stopped, right in the middle of your great dash, from morning to evening, to ask, where exactly is this train going? And more importantly, where are you now? Because if you really look, you will find that you have never actually experienced tomorrow. You've thought about it, yes. You've feared it, planned it, hoped for it, but you've never lived there, nor have you ever been to yesterday. The only place you have ever been, or ever will be, is this, the immediate, unfolding moment we call now. And yet, we act as though now were a mere stepping stone to something better, some grand future that will finally justify all the hurry. From the moment we learn to speak, we are trained to move forward, grow up, work hard, get somewhere. We are told that life is a ladder, and that every rung is a measure of success. School prepares you for college, college prepares you for work, work prepares you for retirement, and retirement prepares you for what? The grave? It's an extraordinary performance, a kind of cosmic relay race in which everyone passes the baton of purpose to the next moment, and no one ever crosses the finish line. Because the finish line is always just ahead, always, someday. We are taught to treat the present as an obstacle to the future, rather than the very fabric of living. And so we divide the whole miracle of existence into three imaginary boxes: past, present, and future. Then we spend most of our lives rummaging through the first and worrying about the last, while the present, the only real thing, slips quietly by. Now, this is not to say that memory and anticipation are useless. They are beautiful instruments, like mirrors that let the mind dance in dimensions. But trouble begins when we mistake the map for the territory, when we confuse the thought of time with time itself. Because, you see, time is not a line marching forward. It is a pattern, a rhythm, a great circle turning endlessly upon itself. The seasons know this. The tides know this. Even your breath, in and out, repeats the ancient rhythm of creation. But somewhere along the way, we forgot the rhythm and started counting the beats. We replaced the dance with the stopwatch. We began to think that life was something to be measured rather than experienced. We became accountants of existence, tallying hours, chasing deadlines, and wondering why we felt perpetually poor in a world overflowing with riches. We live in an age that worships progress, but progress toward what? If we are always becoming, when do we ever be? We have mistaken motion for meaning and effort for aliveness. Like a man running on a treadmill toward a horizon painted on the wall, we keep going faster, sweating harder, believing that speed will bring arrival. But, my dear friends, there is no arrival, because there is nowhere to arrive to. You are not on your way to life, you are life unfolding. You are not a traveler moving through time. Time is moving through you. The present is not the point between the past and future. It is the timeless field in which both arise and dissolve, like waves on the same ocean. So when you look at the clock, remember that ticking is not a countdown to doom, nor a ladder to heaven. It's simply a reminder that the universe is still dancing. The second hand moves not to hurry you, but to show you the pulse of existence, the beat of the cosmic heart. And when you stop to listen, you may notice something marvelous. The past and the future are not two enemies pulling you apart. They are partners in a waltz, turning together around the still point of the present. And in that still point where the mind falls silent and the heart opens, you realize that nothing is running away from you. You've been home all along. Now then, once we have begun to loosen our grip on this strange superstition of linear time, something rather enchanting comes into view. Science, that most sober and respectable of human enterprises, has been creeping almost reluctantly toward a truth the mystics have been giggling about for ages, that the universe is not a collection of separate things bumping into each other like billiard balls. It is a single, seamless event, a dance, a symphony, a pattern in motion. You see, when physicists began to look very closely at the smallest things, down into the ghostly realm of atoms and quanta, they found something extraordinary. The old model of the universe as a clockwork mechanism began to crumble, because particles, those tiny building blocks of matter, refused to behave like polite, self-contained citizens. They began doing very mischievous things. They could be in two places at once. They could vanish here and appear there without crossing the space between. They could even remain mysteriously connected across vast distances, so that what happened to one instantly influenced the other, as if the two were merely faces of the same invisible coin. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. I prefer to call it a cosmic inside joke. For you see, the universe is not made of parts. It only looks that way when we start chopping it up with thought. Entanglement is the whisper of oneness breaking through the static of separation, a little nudge from reality, reminding us that everything is, in fact, the same event happening in 1,000 disguises. Now, imagine if this curious relationship between entangled particles did not stop at the boundaries of matter, but extended to consciousness itself. What if the reason you sometimes feel a flash of knowing, a déjà vu, a dream that comes true, an intuition that defies logic, is because the you that already knows is not in your past, but in your future? What if consciousness, being not limited by space, is not limited by time either? Perhaps what you call intuition is not a gift from above, but a conversation across dimensions, your present awareness brushing fingertips with its own future reflection. The physicists speak of temporal entanglement correlations that seem to run backward, as if the future can influence the past. But to a universe that is not divided into moments, this is no miracle at all. It is simply the left hand of reality shaking hands with the right. We think of time as an arrow, flying straight and sharp. But perhaps it's more like the tide, ebbing and flowing, folding back upon itself, carrying messages in both directions. If this is true, then you are not merely moving toward your future, you are also being pulled by it, gently, invisibly, like a wave guided by its own crest that has not yet arrived. And this changes everything, because then the sense of destiny we sometimes feel, that mysterious pull toward a person, a place, a purpose, might not be superstition at all. It may be your own greater self whispering through the corridors of time, "Come this way. I'm waiting for you here." You see, the universe is very fond of hiding itself in riddles. It loves to play peekaboo, to conceal what is obvious in order to make discovery possible. When you hear about entanglement, about the instant communication between distant things, don't think of it as some abstract quantum trick. Think of it as the laughter of creation, showing you that connection precedes distance, that unity comes before division, and that perhaps, just perhaps, your life is already known to itself in its entirety. But this, of course, is too much for our sensible minds. We like to believe in order and causality, in plans and predictions. So when science begins to sound like poetry, we grow suspicious. We ask, what use is all this mystery? But that's the wonderful thing about mystery. It isn't useful. It's alive. And life itself, you see, was never meant to be useful. It was meant to be experienced. When we realize that time may not be a one-way street, we begin to relax a little. We stop forcing the road to go somewhere. We begin to sense that the road itself is moving, carrying us along, and that perhaps it knows the way better than we do. So when you next feel that gentle tug of intuition, that subtle déjà vu, that strange sense that you've been here before, or that the future is already written in your bones, don't rush to analyze it. Smile at it. Let it be. Because that whisper might be your own voice, calling backward through the corridors of being, saying, all is well, you've already arrived. Now, if the universe is whispering to us through these invisible threads of time, our natural question, being the industrious little creatures that we are, is, splendid, how do I use it? And there, of course, we trip over our own cleverness. Because the moment we try to use life, we lose touch with it. The moment we scheme to control the current sweeps us off our feet. We humans are extraordinary in our devotion to struggle. We've made an entire civilization out of anxiety, the constant effort to outsmart tomorrow. We say, plan ahead, prepare for the future, take control. But control of what? Have you ever noticed that every time you make the world behave, it misbehaves in some new and fascinating way? We call it bad luck, or change, or chaos, but it's really just life refusing to be managed. You see, the future doesn't need your help. It arrives all by itself, right on time, every time. But we act as though it were a nervous guest that might get lost unless we send 100 reminders. We consult horoscopes, algorithms, gurus, economists, all to predict what will happen next. But as long as you're watching the horizon, you forget the ground under your feet. It's rather like trying to catch your own shadow. The more you chase it, the faster it runs. The harder you grasp at certainty, the more it slips through your fingers. Because certainty, like water, cannot be seized. It must be allowed. Now, this doesn't mean you should sit around waiting for the heavens to drop groceries in your lap. No. Life moves. You breathe, you act, you respond. But the strain, the pushing, the obsession with results, that is what exhausts you. That is the great misunderstanding. Forcing fate is like hammering a flower to make it bloom. Look at the oak tree. It doesn't try to grow. It doesn't grit its teeth and say, 1 more inch and I'll be enlightened. No. It grows because growth is its nature, and you, though you may have forgotten, are of the same nature. When you act from that natural rhythm, things happen with a kind of effortless inevitability. When you strain against it, even success tastes sour. We've been educated to believe that only effort produces value, that struggle is proof of virtue. But the truth is, effort often arises from distrust. We do not trust life to carry us, so we thrash about to prove we're in control. The modern man doesn't walk, he lunges through time. He doesn't breathe. He strategizes his next inhalation. And then he wonders why he's tired. You see, we confuse movement with meaning. We imagine that being busy is the same as being alive. But a hamster on a wheel is terribly busy, and he never gets anywhere. The more we try to force the pattern of life to match our expectations, the more it slips away, like trying to sculpt a waterfall with your hands. And so the anxiety builds. What if I miss my chance? What if I make the wrong choice? What if I'm not where I'm supposed to be? But the joke, you see, is that you can't miss it, because you are it. The very force that makes you question your path is the same intelligence that created the path. You are not walking the road. You are the road unfolding beneath your feet. When you finally tire of controlling everything, when you collapse into the arms of exhaustion and mutter, I give up, something miraculous happens. You find, to your astonishment, that the world keeps going quite beautifully without your supervision. The sun rises, the lungs breathe, the heart beats, all without effort. And then you laugh. You laugh because you realize that life has never asked for your permission to work. It only asked for your participation. Fate, you see, is not a stern master with a whip. It's a dance partner waiting for you to stop leading. The moment you stop forcing, movement becomes graceful. Decisions arise naturally. Intuition, that quiet voice from the depths, begins to guide you with far more precision than any amount of planning ever could, because that voice is not separate from time. It is time speaking through you. So when you find yourself worrying about the future, remember, you don't have to push the river. It's already flowing. You don't have to pull the seasons. They're already turning. The universe is far older and wiser than your little schemes, and it's been doing this dance for quite some time without your advice. Relax, then. Trust the rhythm that beats beneath your ribs. The more you allow life to lead, the more gracefully you'll find yourself keeping time with the cosmos. Forcing fate is the surest way to miss the miracle that was always unfolding right where you stand. And when you finally stop wrestling with destiny, you'll discover it was never an opponent at all. It was your own reflection, waiting patiently for you to notice that the fight was only ever a dance. You see, once you stop wrestling with fate, once you let the river of life carry you instead of trying to dam it up with plans, something extraordinary begins to dawn upon you. You start to hear the rhythm that was there all along, the rhythm that the ancients called Tao, that the poets call grace, and that every heartbeat in your chest has been quietly keeping time with since the beginning. Time, you see, is not a line, it is music. And the curious thing about music is that it makes no sense unless you let it move. Imagine listening to a symphony and demanding that the conductor play only the final chord because you're too busy to sit through the rest. That's what most of us are doing with life. We are so anxious to reach the finale, to achieve, to conclude, to arrive, that we forget the point of the song was never to get to the end. It was to dance while it played. When we think of time as money, we rush. But when we think of time as rhythm, we listen. Every note, every silence has its place. The pauses are as important as the sounds. Without the silence between notes, there is no melody. Without the stillness between moments, there is no life. Our culture has trained us to treat every beat as a step toward something else. Keep moving, we say. Stay productive. But the rhythm of the cosmos doesn't rush. The planets aren't sprinting around the sun. The tides don't punch the clock. Even the stars take their time. We're the only ones panting at the finish line of each day, wondering why peace never catches up. If you listen closely, you'll notice that everything in nature is moving in cycles, not in straight lines. The seasons, the moon, your breath, all of it in eternal return. The tree does not grow upward forever. It expands, rests, sheds, and begins again. The heart does not only beat forward, it pulses contraction and release, tension and ease. This is the music of time, the harmony of opposites. But we've been conditioned to hear only one side of the symphony. We celebrate beginnings and mourn endings, forgetting they are the same event. Birth and death are not enemies. They are two stanzas of the same song. The wave rises and falls, and in that falling, the ocean smiles. Once you see that, the fear of running out of time begins to dissolve. Because how could you run out of something that isn't going anywhere? You don't have time, you are time. You are the pulse of the universe made visible. The same rhythm that beats in galaxies is breathing through you right now. Let me put it this way. When you dance, you don't dance to get somewhere across the floor. You dance because the movement itself is delightful. The purpose of dancing is the dance. The purpose of singing is the song, and the purpose of living is the living. But we've turned it all into a contest. We move through life as though it were a ladder to climb, as if every step up brings us closer to salvation. Yet what if the ladder is an illusion? What if there was never anything to climb, only a rhythm to join? When you listen deeply enough, you find that the melody of existence is not composed of your plans and achievements. It's made of simple moments, the sound of rain, the laughter of a friend, the rise and fall of your own breath. These are not interruptions in your schedule. They are the schedule. You don't need to make the music happen. You only need to hear it. For even your mistakes, your delays, your detours, they all resolve into the harmony of the whole, just as every discord in a symphony eventually finds its resolution. The wise man does not try to push the song forward. He listens, he moves, he lets the melody play him. That's the real secret of harmony, to know that you are not separate from the music. You are the note being sung. You are the beat keeping time. So, let the music of time play through you. Don't try to conduct it. Don't argue with the tempo. When it quickens, dance with it. When it slows, rest. When it stops, if it ever does, you will see that the silence was never absence. It was the pause before another song. And perhaps, if you listen very carefully, you'll notice that the music of time is not something that began long ago and will end someday. It's a symphony without beginning or end, a melody that the universe has been humming to itself forever, pretending not to know it, just for the joy of rediscovering it through you. You know, it's a rather astonishing discovery when you begin to see that the future isn't waiting somewhere ahead of you like a train schedule. It's already here, folded invisibly into this very moment like light folded into a prism, waiting for the right angle to shine through. We spend so much of our lives imagining that the future is out there far away, hiding just beyond the horizon, something we must chase and conquer. But tell me, when tomorrow comes, where does it appear? It always appears here, right where you are. The future, when it happens, never happens in the future. It happens now. And so, perhaps the whole idea of the future self is not some distant, perfected version of you waiting in the wings of time, but the same you, whispering softly through layers of unfolding, trying to remind you that you've already arrived. Now, this is where things get delightfully mysterious. Because if time is not a line, but a field, then your future self is not far away, it's humming quietly in the same space you're occupying right now. And sometimes, if you grow very still, you can feel it. You can feel that nudge, that impulse, that inexplicable intuition that says, turn left instead of right, say yes instead of no, call that friend today. That's not fate speaking in riddles. That's you, the you that already knows, sending ripples back through the fabric of your own awareness. But of course, the rational mind doesn't trust that. It wants evidence, guarantees, security. It says, nonsense, that's coincidence, imagination, delusion. And yet, who's doing the imagining? Who's receiving the message? The very act of intuition is the mind acknowledging that it is larger than itself, that something deeper is moving through it. So instead of trying to summon your future self, try listening. Don't force it. Don't make it a ritual or a self-improvement project. Simply notice the quiet currents of impulse that move through you when you are at ease, when you are not busy trying to be anything. For when you are utterly still, when you stop chasing the next thing, the next goal, the next better version of yourself, something begins to shimmer at the edges of perception. You may feel it as warmth, as clarity, as a sudden sense of alignment. It's as if the universe gently takes your hand and says, this way. That moment, that flash of natural knowing, is your future self reaching across the illusion of time to meet you in the only place you can ever truly meet. Now, because you see, your life is not a procession of separate moments, one following the next like beads on a string. It is one continuous movement, a wave, folding and refolding upon itself, revealing different faces of the same eternal you. When you meditate, when you walk without destination, when you lose yourself in art or love or wonder, Haven't you felt it? That sense of being outside of time? The clock still ticks. The world still turns. But you are suspended in something vast and timeless. In that space, the boundaries between past and future dissolve. And all that remains is the luminous presence of being. It's there that you and your so-called future self are not two, but one. You are both the seed and the blossom, the inhale and the exhale, the question and the answer. We think of life as a journey from ignorance to wisdom, from confusion to clarity. But what if wisdom has been here all along, simply waiting for us to stop pretending we don't know? What if the future self is not a destination, but a memory of something you never really lost, your own completeness, your own stillness, your own natural rhythm with existence? And the funny thing is, once you begin to live this way, not chasing the future, but listening to its gentle tug, you start to notice coincidences. You begin to find yourself in the right place at the right time, meeting the right people, saying the right words, without any deliberate planning. It feels effortless, almost playful, as though life itself were conspiring with you rather than against you. But that's not magic, that's resonance. When you live in tune with your own unfolding, life stops being a series of random events and becomes a symphony of timing. Your future self is not calling from a distance. It's humming beneath your skin. It's the quiet intelligence of life reminding you again and again, there is no path to follow. There is only the way you are walking. So, next time you find yourself yearning to know what comes next, pause, breathe, look around. You might just catch your future self smiling back at you through the eyes of the present moment, the eternal mirror where all times meet and recognize themselves. And then, in that exquisite instant, the question of time dissolves. You see that the one who is walking and the one who is waiting have always been the same traveler, dreaming the same dream, awake at last to the truth, that tomorrow has always been now. Now, the moment you begin to listen, truly listen, you start to notice something rather marvelous happening. Coincidences. Small ones at first. You think of an old friend, and the phone rings. You need a certain book, and it falls off a shelf. You happen to walk down a street you've never walked before, and there, waiting for you, is exactly what you didn't know you were looking for. And you say, well, that's funny. What a coincidence. But the word coincidence means things coinciding, fitting together. And isn't that precisely what life is? An infinite number of events, weaving and folding, fitting together in a tapestry so intricate that you only ever see the few threads nearest your eyes. The psychologist Carl Jung called this synchronicity, meaningful coincidence. Events linked not by cause and effect, but by pattern, by resonance. The rational mind looks for a chain of reasoning. How did this cause that? But the universe doesn't think in chains, it thinks in constellations. You see, the same intelligence that arranges galaxies also arranges the timing of a falling leaf. Everything from the swirl of the Milky Way to the flicker of thought behind your eyes is one grand choreography. But we, being terribly busy, miss the music. We think synchronicity is rare, when in truth it is constant. We just aren't paying attention. It's rather like a fish discovering the ocean only after someone points it out. The fish has been swimming in it all along. When you finally begin to relax into the rhythm of being, you notice that you've been swimming in miracles your whole life. Now, don't misunderstand. Synchronicity isn't about controlling outcomes or turning life into a private magic trick. It's not about wishing for something and waiting for the universe to deliver it on your doorstep like a cosmic postman. No, it's subtler than that and much more beautiful. Synchronicity happens when your personal rhythm falls into step with the rhythm of the whole. When you stop pushing and start listening. When your thoughts and desires are no longer foreign to life, but arise from the same source that grows the trees and spins the stars, then, quite naturally, everything begins to fit. But you can't manufacture it. The moment you say, I'm going to attract coincidences, you've already stepped out of the flow. You've turned the dance into a performance. And the universe, ever playful, smiles and hides again. Because synchronicity is like laughter. It can't be forced. It happens when you are surprised by the obvious. You see, life has a wonderful sense of humor. It loves to play hide and seek. It hides the answers in plain sight. It lets you chase, and just when you give up, in exhaustion, there it is, waiting at your feet, saying, "Oh, hello! You've been looking for me, haven't you?" That's what synchronicity feels like. Life giggling through the events of your day, reminding you that you were never separate from the pattern. Think of it as a wink from the cosmos. A gentle reminder that even the most ordinary day is part of something exquisitely designed, yet utterly spontaneous. You are not making things happen, you are watching them happen through you. And when you begin to see that, gratitude blossoms naturally. You stop trying to micromanage existence and begin to trust its timing. You start to realize that even delays, disappointments, detours are not punishments, but punctuation marks, pauses that give meaning to the sentence of your life. Synchronicity teaches you to trust not in control, but in coherence. The sense that everything is already connected, already unfolding exactly as it must, though you rarely see the pattern until afterward when you look back and laugh, saying, of course, it had to happen that way. So, when time laughs, laugh with it. When something improbable falls perfectly into place, don't rush to analyze or explain. Smile, bow to the mystery, because that laugh, that spontaneous joy at the unity of all things, is the sound of life recognizing itself. And perhaps, when you stop taking coincidences as accidents, you begin to live in a different kind of time altogether. Not chronological time, chopped into minutes and deadlines, but kairos, the time of meaning, the time of harmony, the eternal moment in which all things happen together. Then you understand what the sages meant when they said that enlightenment is not about controlling reality, but about noticing it, noticing how astonishingly well the universe has been choreographing your steps all along, even when you thought you were lost. So, the next time the impossible happens, and the pieces fall perfectly into place, don't call it luck. Don't call it magic. Call it what it really is. The laughter of time itself, the sound of existence, remembering that everything is already home. You know, it's one of the most delightful ironies in all of human experience, that the one who is searching so desperately for truth, for peace, for enlightenment, is the very thing they're searching for. It's like a dog chasing its own tail. Round and round it goes, panting and spinning, convinced that the tail is somewhere else. And if only it could run a little faster, try a little harder, it would finally catch up with happiness. But of course, the faster it runs, the farther the tail seems to move away, and the whole neighborhood can see the joke, except the dog. And so it is with us. We imagine that life is a journey from imperfection to perfection, from confusion to clarity, from lostness to home. We build temples, philosophies, religions, self-help programs, rocket ships, all in the hope that one day we will arrive. But, my dear friends, there is no arrival. There never was, because you were never apart from the destination to begin with. The truth is not a summit to climb. It is the ground under your feet. You were standing on it before you ever set out. But our minds, bless them, are built to wander. They love problems to solve, puzzles to decode, ladders to climb, and so they invent one, the greatest game of all. How can I become what I already am? And the answer, of course, is you can't, because the one who's trying doesn't exist apart from the thing it's trying to reach. The self that seeks awakening is the very illusion awakening dissolves. It's a wave trying to catch the ocean. And when that dawns upon you, not as a theory, but as an experience, you burst out laughing, because the game was rigged from the start. You can't lose something that was never lost. You can't find something that was never hidden. You can't improve what has never been imperfect. That's the cosmic joke, the punchline of existence, the universe pretending to be separate from itself just for the thrill of remembering. You see, every seeker is secretly the sought. Every question is the answer in disguise. The dreamer and the dream are one event playing two roles for the fun of it. That's why when the great mystics finally wake up, they don't say, "Eureka, I've found it." They just laugh, because they realize there was never anything to find. It was all here the whole time, humming patiently behind every moment, waiting for them to stop pretending to be lost. The effort to get there was the only veil between you and what you've always been. And when the striving falls away, when you finally stop trying to improve upon perfection, there's an extraordinary sense of relief. The same kind of relief you feel when you remember the name you were struggling to recall. Oh, of course. How silly of me. And in that instant, all the tension dissolves. The need to become becomes the joy of being. It's like waking up from a long, exhausting dream in which you were running, searching, fearing, fighting, and then realizing that the one who was running was never real. The running itself was the dream. You laugh because you see that the whole drama, all your plans, your ambitions, your fears, your triumphs, was life playing hide and seek with itself. You were never out of harmony, never off the path, never behind schedule. There's no schedule. The universe doesn't keep time cards. It keeps time only the way a song keeps rhythm. So when you finally stop asking, "How do I get there?" the answer arises, you don't. You never left. And the wonderful thing about this realization is that it doesn't make you passive. On the contrary, it makes you light. You begin to move through the world with the grace of someone who's no longer trying to prove anything. You still work, love, play, create, but without the strain, without the fear that you're missing the mark. Because how could you miss it? The mark is everywhere. It's like the sound of laughter after a thunderstorm, that sudden sunlit moment when you see that the whole tempest was just the sky enjoying itself. So, when you understand the cosmic joke, don't be too serious about understanding it. Just laugh, because in that laughter, all the striving stops, all the effort melts, and life, which has been waiting so patiently, rushes in and says, "Ah, there you are. You finally stopped pretending to be late. You were never behind. You were never lost. You were never anything other than what you are now, the universe. For a brief and beautiful moment, pretending to be a person, pretending to be confused, pretending to wake up. And when you see that, you can't help but smile, because you realize that enlightenment was never something to achieve. It was the punchline waiting beneath every question you ever asked. Now then, once you have seen the joke, once you have laughed that great cosmic laugh, something gentle happens. The compulsive need to control begins to fade, and in its place comes a deep, wordless trust. You no longer feel that you must push the river. You begin, instead, to float. We've been raised to believe that surrender is weakness, that to let go is to give up. But that's not true surrender, that's resignation. Resignation is the sigh of defeat. Surrender is the smile of wisdom. It is the quiet recognition that life knows what it's doing, even when you don't. You see, the flow of time is like a great current. It moves through you and around you, sweeping stars through the heavens and blood through your veins. When you fight it, you exhaust yourself. When you resist it, you feel lost. But when you yield, then you discover that the current was never separate from you. You were the flow all along. We, modern people, are so frightened of stillness. We measure worth by motion, by progress, by achievement. We are addicted to direction, always asking, what next? What should I do? Where should I go? But life, you see, is not a journey with a destination. It is a rhythm, a play, a movement that has no goal outside itself. When you surrender to that, you find that your actions don't stop, they simply change their flavor. Instead of straining to make things happen, you begin to allow them. Instead of swimming upstream, you turn and let the water carry you. And curiously enough, you end up exactly where you were trying to go, only without the blisters. To surrender is to move in harmony with the larger intelligence that animates everything. It doesn't mean you sit on a cushion waiting for destiny to knock politely on your door. No, surrender is participation of a higher order, like dancing. You move, but you're not the one deciding each step. You let the music lead, and you discover that you knew the rhythm all along. You see, when you stop fighting time, something miraculous happens. You begin to hear its music. You notice that what you once called interruptions are actually syncopations. The delays, the detours, the accidents, all part of the melody. The rhythm was never broken. You were simply listening for a different beat. We've made a religion out of resistance. We glorify the self-made man, the conqueror, the one who bends the world to his will. But have you noticed that such men seldom rest? They conquer one mountain and immediately start scanning the horizon for the next. And behind their triumph is always a whisper, what if it all falls apart? But when you surrender, you see there's nothing to defend. The mountain and the valley are the same ground. Winning and losing are simply waves rising and falling on the same ocean. When you stop needing life to match your plans, you discover a strange and beautiful freedom, the freedom to be surprised. And this surrender, far from making you passive, awakens an extraordinary energy, because all the force you once used to resist is released into pure vitality. You no longer waste strength on anxiety. And that energy begins to express itself as creativity, laughter, love. You see, life doesn't want your control. It wants your cooperation. It doesn't need your discipline. It needs your trust. The current of time is wiser than any plan you could invent, because it isn't moving towards something, it's moving as something. It's moving as you. So when you feel that tightness in the chest, that endless list of shoulds and musts and deadlines, remember, the universe has been here for billions of years before you, and it's doing quite well without your constant supervision. The stars are not consulting your calendar. The earth is not anxiously awaiting your approval before it spins. To surrender, then, is to remember your place in the great symphony, not as the conductor, but as the note being played. You do not have to manage the song. You only have to be true to your tone. And when you live this way, the fear of time dissolves. You no longer dread the future or regret the past. You begin to see that time is not something moving through you. You are what time looks like when it wakes up and smiles. So, let the river carry you. Don't fight the current. Don't clutch at the banks. Trust that, wherever it takes you, it knows the way. For the river is not going somewhere, it is going on. And in that endless flowing, you discover the deepest rest of all, the rest of no longer needing to swim against the rhythm of your own nature. Surrender is not the end of action, it is the beginning of grace. You know, once you have surrendered to the current, once you've stopped flailing against time's flow, a most curious thing begins to dawn upon you. You start to notice that life is astonishingly competent at living itself. The grass doesn't attend workshops on how to grow. The stars aren't run by committees. The tide never files a progress report. And yet, somehow, everything happens with a grace that no amount of planning could improve. We have been taught to think that intelligence is something that lives only inside our skulls, something humans possess in small quantities and machines are learning to imitate. But when you look carefully, you see that intelligence is not a possession, it's the fabric of existence itself. The universe doesn't contain intelligence. It is intelligence. And you, curious little ripple of consciousness that you are not outside of that. You are that intelligence, temporarily dressed up as a person, peering at itself through two eyes and saying, I wonder how all this works. When you begin to trust the flow, you also begin to recognize its wisdom. You see how even the things you once called mistakes had their place in the grand design. The heartbreaks, the failures, the detours, all were the universe reshaping itself through you, pushing you toward new forms of awareness. Every disappointment was a redirection of energy, every loss an opening in disguise. There's an ancient saying from the East, the Tao is not doing anything, yet nothing is left undone. That's another way of saying that the universe doesn't need to struggle to function. It moves effortlessly because it is one movement. Its intelligence is distributed everywhere and nowhere, like the scent of a flower carried on the wind. But we, in our anxious cleverness, imagine that we must think for it as if the cosmos somehow forgot to install a manager. We worry that if we stop worrying, everything will fall apart. And yet, look around. The birds are not checking spreadsheets before migration. The planets are not late for their orbits. The whole thing hums along with astonishing precision and unhurried ease. The intelligence that guides all of this is the same intelligence that beats your heart, digests your food, dreams your dreams. You do not command it. You are it. You are the process, not the puppet. You are the knowing, not the knower. When this realization sinks in, a tremendous peace arises because you no longer feel separate from what's happening. You no longer see yourself as a small creature trying to survive inside a vast and indifferent cosmos. You see that you are the cosmos, temporarily looking through human eyes, exploring its own depth through your experience. And then life becomes astonishingly intimate. The sound of the wind is your own breath in another form. The light on the water is your own awareness, shimmering back at you. The boundaries between you and the world begin to dissolve, and everything begins to feel as though it's in perfect conversation. You begin to see that the universe is not random, not mechanical, but profoundly relational. Every event is a response, every movement an echo. The falling leaf, the birth of a star, the smile of a stranger, each one part of an intelligence far greater than any individual mind. And perhaps that's what we mean when we speak of God, or Tao, or the Source. Not an old man in the clouds issuing commands, but this living intelligence, playing all the roles, writing all the lines, performing all the acts simultaneously. When you recognize that, you stop asking life to explain itself, because you realize that you are not outside the explanation. You are inside the poem, a verse written in flesh and light and breath. And what does the poem say? It says, be still and know that you are me. So when the mind grows restless, trying to figure out what's next, when you catch yourself doubting whether life truly knows what it's doing, just look around. Watch a tree swaying in the wind, or a cloud drifting without hurry. They are your teachers, showing you the art of intelligence without interference. For the same power that spins the galaxies is the one moving through your hands when you reach out in kindness, through your lungs when you sigh in relief, through your tears when you finally let go. That is the intelligence of the unfolding universe, the intelligence of being itself. It does not need your permission to be perfect. It only asks that you stop pretending to be separate. And when you stop pretending, you find that there was never anything to fix, nothing to improve, nothing to manage. Life was never a puzzle to be solved. It was a song to be sung, and you were the melody all along. You see, when one has glimpsed the intelligence that moves through all things, when one has felt it breathing through every heartbeat and every gust of wind, a certain stillness begins to bloom inside. It is not a stillness you create, but a stillness that reveals itself, the quiet center around which everything spins. The poet T.S. Eliot once called it the still point of the turning world. At that point, he said, there the dance is. And what he meant was that even as everything moves, the stars, the galaxies, your thoughts, your memories, there is something unmoving at the heart of it all, something beyond motion and rest, something that has been here before time began and will remain after the last atom fades. It is this stillness that you begin to recognize as your own essence, not the busy chatter of the mind, not the flicker of emotions, not even the story of who you think you are. Beneath all that silent, steady, vast, there is awareness itself. And this awareness has no past or future. It is not bound to yesterday's mistakes or tomorrow's hopes. It does not age, it does not rush, it does not seek. It simply is. You have felt it in those fleeting moments when you stop struggling watching a sunset, listening to the rain, holding someone you love. For just a second, the story of me disappears, and only being remains. That, my friends, is the still point. The mind imagines that peace must be built like a house, brick by brick, meditation by meditation. But peace was never lost. It's what's left when you stop making noise. Think of a muddy pond. When the water is agitated, it looks murky. You cannot see your reflection. But when the stirring stops, the mud sinks, and the surface clears by itself. You don't have to make it clear, you only have to stop disturbing it. In that same way, when your mind stops spinning stories about who you are, what should happen, and what might go wrong, it naturally becomes still. And in that stillness, the reflection appears not of who you think you are, but of what you've always been, the mirror of existence itself. And you realize, perhaps with a soft laugh, that life never needed your constant commentary. It was perfectly complete without your interference. The intelligence that turns the world has never asked for your advice. It only invites you to dance with it. At the still point, you no longer feel like a fragment trying to rejoin the whole. You see that you are the whole, momentarily pretending to be a fragment for the joy of remembering. The boundaries between inside and outside, self and other, begin to dissolve, and what's left is simplicity itself. Breathing happens, thoughts arise, laughter spills out, tears come and go, all part of the same motion. It is then that time itself seems to lose its grip. You may still look at the clock, but you no longer live by it. Moments are no longer hurdles to leap over. They are petals opening in infinite succession. Every second becomes sacred, not because of what it leads to, but because it is. And this simple recognition is the quiet enlightenment that sages have spoken of since the beginning, not a thunderbolt from the heavens, but the dawning of ordinary wonder, the realization that you were never separate, never lost, never late. You sit quietly, perhaps under a tree, and you feel it, the pulse of life moving effortlessly through everything, the leaves trembling, the breath rising and falling, the sound of a bird somewhere in the distance. And you realize that none of this is happening to you. It is happening as you. And then maybe you smile. You smile because you see that there was never a journey after all. There was only this eternal unfolding, this endless now. You smile because the game of becoming has resolved back into being. At last, there is no trying, no searching, no dividing the sacred from the ordinary. The trying has become the flowing, the searching has become the seeing, and the seeker has disappeared into what was sought. This, you see, is the great silence the mystics point to, not the absence of sound, but the absence of resistance. The place where you stop insisting that life be different, the place where you and the world are no longer two. And in that silence, even words like enlightenment, God, truth, and peace lose their importance. They're like footsteps in the sand, leading you back to the ocean, useful until you arrive, but meaningless once you're swimming. For when you rest in that still point, the heart of the turning world, there is only one realization left, and it is the simplest of all. You and life are not separate. You never were. The river was carrying you all along. So laugh gently, breathe deeply, and let the current take you. For in this endless flow of existence, you were never behind, never ahead, only home, always home, in the timeless now.